Food program started in 1963. The world predicted we may have a hunger challenge for a few years, and then we would maybe be out of business. And unfortunately, even though the world has made great progress in reducing the proportion of hunger in the world, cutting it in half from 1969 till today, still the absolute number of hungry people is growing. But unfortunately, we have 1 billion people in the world today who cannot provide for their own family. Last year, we faced probably the biggest challenge of our lifetime. We had what I called a silent tsunami of hunger caused by the doubling of food prices, and this hit the poorest of the poor very hard. And the world assisted us, including historic contribution from Saudi Arabia to help in meeting those emergency needs. And we feel we were able to prevent 100 million people from suffering serious damage or even death from hunger last year. So the World Food Program assists governments when groups of people are trapped without enough food for a multiplicity of reasons. Today, the World Food Program is reaching over 100 million people a year with life-saving food, often produced by local farmers. I have a motto for WFP, which is nothing gets between WFP and a hungry child. Well, we find that hunger is caused by two main causes. One is a question of food production, and another is a question of food access. One thing that we do at the World Food Program is provide food for children in school. This cup comes from our program in Rwanda, and if you fill this cup with some hot porridge every day and put some vitamins in it, you can save a child's mind and their body. So one thing we are urging governments to do is to institute school feeding programs throughout the school system, so at least we know children are getting enough to eat. And WFP is the key partner for many governments in the region, including Yemen, Jordan, Morocco. Well, certainly throughout history you've seen different kinds of hunger. There's the hunger of people trapped in circumstances beyond anyone's control. An earthquake, a tsunami, a drought. There's man-made disasters, wars, conflict, and people get trapped in those circumstances. And occasionally in history, there have been charges that there's forced hunger. We have a very strong message on that hunger should not be a tool for any purpose in any circumstance. When the conflicts took a stepping up, WFP declared the situation in Gaza a corporate emergency. It's our highest level of alert. We were very concerned that the people of Gaza were not able to access the basic needs of food to survive. What we discovered when I visited there during the conflict and went to the border of Gaza and talked with people is even if we got food in, as we were, people could not cook the food. And so we were sending in wheat and oil and sugar and salt and tea, but there was no cooking oil, no electricity, and no water. And one thing we did is develop a new strategy to be able to help, which was, this is a date bar we produce in Egypt for Egyptian school children that is power-packed with nutrition. And we immediately did an emergency production of 20 million date bars to bring into Gaza because they don't have to be cooked. People can open this and eat and have the basic nutrients they need. We had a special problem in the hospitals because the nurses and doctors did not have access to food and they were staying 24 hours a day. And the patients being brought into the hospitals didn't have food. And I put out a special appeal to the region, to the nations in the region, for meals ready to eat that are made for military purposes to be able to come in because they're already prepared. This is an example of one from India that we used in Myanmar. So this is my goal. First, to make sure no child goes to school hungry anymore. This is doable. Last year, 1 out of 6 people went to bed hungry. 1 out of 6 people in the world went to bed hungry. But if you divide up the amount of food, there was enough calories for everybody. In fact, 2,700 calories for each person. So in the distribution of food and access to food by the poorest of the poor, we have a big breakdown. We are witnessing something unique in history, which is the merging of food and fuel markets. So for the first time in history, the technology exists for people to take anything that is grown, palm oil, corn, wheat, other oils, and put it in a machine and create fuel. And when oil is very high priced, over $50 a barrel, it becomes profitable all over the world for people to take food and make it into fuel. So the US made ethanol from corn. In Africa, they made fuel from palm oil. And there wasn't enough food to do this. We think we're in for a bad 2 or 3 years for the world's most vulnerable people. And we think it's very important, as I said in Washington, D.C. when I was there, we must not only worry about Wall Street and Main Street, but the places with no streets. This is the issue we really focus on, is how can we ensure that every individual on Earth has access to enough nutrition. If not, we're living in the dark ages. We're living in another era when we're losing 1/6 of humanity to a plight so fundamental that it sounds like a story from bygone years, but it's not. It's a tragedy being suffered today. We step in when all else has failed. My personal goal is to put WFP out of business.